This week's podcast is sponsored by Sevenoaks Sound and Vision, one of the UK's most trusted independent hi-fi and AV specialists. For over 40 years, Sevenoaks has been providing excellent service, value and products for their customers. With nationwide outlets, go to ssav.com to find your nearest store. Hello and welcome to the AVForums podcast for Monday the 6th of November, and joining me on this edition, Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
Give me strength.
He said that with such feeling there. Audio reviewer Ed Selley.
Your call is moderately important to us.
And we got two Marks on the podcast this week. Unbelievably, news editor Mark Hodgkinson.
Did you say marmalade?
And special guest Mark Botwright.
I am not your honeypot. I never was.
He always picks the best quotes. The Grand Cure... Grand Cure?
That's what Mark needs.
Yeah.
The Grand Tour is back. The trailer dropped a couple of days ago. I sent it to everybody, whether you wanted it or not. I sent it to you to have a look. Got to say, first thing that stands out is the cinematography is still absolutely first class. They really know how to shoot a TV program. The season 2 trailer is pretty epic. It uses Paul McCartney and Live and Let Die, and it's so well done. Whether you love or hate Clarkson and the gang, it looks epic. It really does, and I can't wait. So it's coming back 8th of December, and all we need now is Top Gear to announce when they're coming back for the second half of the year. I thought they would have been here and gone by now.
I don't know. It's a movable feast, and it really depends on what else the BBC's doing at any given time. I mean, obviously, as I said to you when you sent me the video, I mean, this looks good. It's no MasterChef The Professionals. I've got to be clear on that. But I'm nonetheless. I've paid for another year of Amazon. I'm intrigued. I shall see how it does. One thing I'm hoping that they significantly step up on, and I know this is a very personal thing, is the use of music, because Top Gear still remains exceptional for that. And the first series of the Grand Tour, they barely bothered. When I thought that was detracted considerably from what they were doing.
I think a lot, Ed, is that BBC have really good deals in terms of using people's music, in terms of requesting to use it and being given permission to use it and so on. Because they're such a huge corporation, because they do so many things, I think they've got really good access to music libraries, whereas a production company for Amazon, they're going to struggle a little bit to get permission for a lot of things, I would imagine, and they're going to have to pay through the nose for it.
They probably blew their entire music budget getting the rights to use Live and Let Die in the trailer.
Well, we'll
that
see.
Kind of been cheap.
I mean, as I say, it's not life or death or live and die, but it's it significantly alters the scope of the program. So I hope that they just stepped it up a little bit for this season.
So yeah, like I say, Top Gear should be coming back as well, because I know that they filmed all their segments for the next. It could be that if they're coming out December, we could get Top Gear in January. I don't think they'll run at the same time.
They don't want to go head to head, do they?
I wouldn't have thought they would want to do that. Although you never know. Be interesting. Right, okay, moving on. Current competitions. What can we win, Mr. Botwright?
You can win a copy of Batman vs. Two-Face on DVD, and that one runs till the 8th of November, or a Dream Screen Smart backlighting kit, and that one runs a bit longer till 13th of December.
Okay, cool. And previous competition winners?
Okay, Guzzo won Transformers The Last Night on DVD. Iron Giant won Churchill on Blu-ray. Donnie won a BenQ W1050 1080p DLP projector, and Martin165 won the Focal Sib Evo 5.1.2 Dolby Atmos speaker system.
It's good. There's some long-standing members in amongst those winners.
Yeah.
So congrats to you chaps. I'm assuming you're chaps. I've always assumed that someone called Iron Giant who signs his posts off Dave is a bloke, but in these exciting times, I may be overstepping my boundaries there. So,
and we discussed the £20,000 home cinema room. You could win that. It was I think it was £5 to enter, and we can announce the winner. Well, the winner's been announced on the forums, but if you're not aware, it was James Finney, who again is a long-standing forums member, and he's won that fantastic prize. And hopefully James is going to set up a thread and take us through the whole transformation.
Set up buying a record player, a chair, and done.
Well, I think somebody,
address, James.
I think somebody did post a set of speaker cables that were £19,995.
Bargain.
So congratulations to James. Well done on winning that. That is a fantastic prize, and thanks to Multi-Room Media for running that competition. Superb prize to win there, and we'll look forward to the thread and the photographs and so on with that. So moving on, hardware news and Apple TV 4K. Steve really liked it, but there were a few issues, Steve. I understand that Apple have now taken those on board and issued some fixes.
Yeah, they have. They've been actually surprisingly quick in responding to this. Now, this software is currently in beta form, so it hasn't been released yet. But the new iOS TV software, which is currently with developers, so that's why we know about this, will have options now where you can select HDR output to match content, and also, and this is great news as well, frame rate to match content. So what it means now is that unlike before, where the Apple TV was putting out, say your TV supported HDR, it was outputting everything as if it was HDR, even if it wasn't. Now it will only output HDR if it is HDR, and then it'll output SDR as SDR, but also it'll output the correct frame rate. So if it's 24p, it'll output 24p. If it's 50p or 25p, it'll output that, etc. So that's actually two of the main. Those were my two main complaints about the Apple TV actually. So with those fixed, it's an even better product, and all it needs now is a few more apps. I'd like to see the Amazon app get on quickly. I know it's coming, but that would be good. Get that on board, and also add the Dolby Atmos support, which is also in the works. And I think the Apple TV becomes a bloody good box.
I tell you what, it's tempted me to buy one now.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah.
No, I really am. I'm thinking, well, God, if it does all that automatic, I don't have to delve into settings like I do on my Shield. And for the streaming apps, I think I might be in. So once the it's actually out in the wild, the update, I think I'll be purchasing one of these.
Steve, what's iTunes UK like for 4K HDR movies?
It's nowhere near as good as the US at the moment. There's a couple of studios missing that are in the States. I think like Sony, for example. I'm sure they will come to the UK. It'll just take time. I mean, we've always had this complaint about the Apple TV, which is it is very US centric, and the best service is currently available in the US. But these things will trickle down to the UK over time. The only studio I think that isn't doing 4K on either the US or UK service is Disney at the moment. But again, I'm sure that will come. But I have seen reports of every now and then something that's available in 4K, then suddenly it's not available in 4K, then it's available in 4K. I guess these are just teething problems. They launched a surprising package in the sense that they gave people free upgrades to 4K on content they'd already bought at 1080p. And I think ultimately it'll be fine. It's just going to take a bit of time. But I will do once they have done the new firmware update, I will go in and double check it and add a few things to the review, just to reflect the changes that have been made. But I think it's heading in the right direction. And as Mark says, I think it's fast becoming a really impressive piece of kit.
So what we should say is that the app developers have to support these changes.
Yes, that's true.
So we'll have to wait and see who actually takes them up on these features. But let's hope it's widespread.
Isn't the pricing for their 4K films the same as the 1080p now?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
They're
basically, it's the cheapest way of getting hold of 4K content there is.
So what is the price?
Easy.
I think it's like $12.99, $14.99. Basically, what you'd pay for a Blu-ray, but you get 4K stream as well.
It's getting there.
So, because you look at an Ultra HD Blu-ray, you're looking at $24.99 average price, I guess, initially at least. So it's significantly cheaper. It's about 10 quid less, basically, than buying the disc. And a lot of the stuff is available with Dolby Atmos, which isn't necessarily the case on the discs at the moment. So
you're seeing a case where streaming is actually slightly ahead of a physical medium for once?
Not necessarily. I have. Yes, if you've got things like Dolby Vision, obviously dynamic metadata does improve the quality, because particularly when things like streaming or less capable displays, because it's doing it on a scene by scene basis. But obviously the disc is at a much higher bit rate, and that can make a big difference too. So it's not that one's necessarily better than the other. It's just one's cheaper and more convenient, I think.
It's not full fat Dolby Atmos either, is it?
No, it's not lossless Dolby Atmos. It's going to be Dolby Digital Plus delivery. Yeah. But when you consider what you can get for like 15 quid, it is quite impressive.
Yeah. So once it's down to £5, I'll buy in. Typical Scotsman. Hodge, anything else in terms of media players that's worth looking at the minute?
Well, there's quite a lot at the minute. Obviously, the Fire TV 3 came out a couple of weeks ago. I put a review up just as it came out. It's like a cheaper version of the Apple TV, really. It's significantly cheaper. It's $69.99 and supports 4K and HDR from Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, and even the iPlayer beta has got the HLG trials in it. It doesn't and never will, I'm fairly certain in saying, support resolution switching, but although it doesn't have any problem, at least if you plug it direct into a TV, switching between HDR and SDR. I have read reports on certain AV receivers that it does have problems with that, and sometimes just gets locked into one of the modes needing a reboot. But it's a really good value little streamer. It does most things you want. What I would say is it's a downgrade on the Fire TV 2. In some ways, it's less powerful, ignoring the HDR aspect of things. That is, it's not as good for local media playback. In fact, it's quite poor, really, comparatively. It doesn't even seem to have a 24 hertz mode for films and TV shows. On the Fire TV 2, you can actually unlock it with a remote control sort of code, and the various apps do take advantage of that, Kodi particularly, and SPMMC. But it doesn't even seem to be that mode in there for whatever reason, because the chipset's definitely capable. But if you're looking for a basic streamer for those kind of services, it's really good value. And I've just got the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, and like literally yesterday. So very early impressions, but that's for my money, and it's £10 more than the Fire TV 3 at $79.99. That's even better for me. It's got a very simple interface. Basically, all the apps are sandboxed from one another. It's just like using your mobile phone. Choose Netflix, loads. There seems to be no issue with it. It supports all the same things as the Fire TV 3 Plus. You get Now TV, and you get Google movies and TV shows. So it's better supported in terms of the mainstream apps. It's shaping up to be a great little device. I've literally used it for a couple of hours, so I'm not ready to review it. But my early thoughts would I'd spend the extra tenner over the Fire TV 3 if that's the market I was in.
Okay, and we'll get that review before 2018, yeah?
You'll get that review next week.
All right, so looking forward to that, and the media box market certainly is moving on a pace, and there's plenty of choice there for people to make their choices, whether you want 4K, HDR, Dolby Vision, and all the rest of it. It's just a shame that one box doesn't do them all at the minute.
Roku gets as close as anything, I would say, but not quite there. It doesn't do Kodi.
I guess for a lot of people that wouldn't be such a big issue.
No. For the majority of people, I know our audience, the AVForums members are interested in local and network media playback. There's obviously a big following for that, which the Roku, you can run a Plex client on it when it runs perfectly nicely. It has done in previous generations, so I see no reason why it wouldn't on this. But yeah, in terms of the Roku, your mum could use it, your gran could use it, your kids could use it. The Fire TV, it's a bit bloated, the interface a little bit overcomplicated, a bit too much pushing Amazon content at you. The Roku is just dead simple.
I really don't think my mum could use it.
She could. My mum can.
My mum calls Freeview TV the landline.
I still think she could. Does she have an up-to-date smartphone?
She doesn't use the Dyson Hoover.
Why? Too complicated.
Well, it's got a button to open the bottom of it, and she gets a bit confused.
Okay, maybe not your mum, but most people's mums could.
Do you not find though that everyone, by the time that you're dealing with parents or relatives who are in their 60s or something, there are things that they find inexplicably complex, but other things which you never think in a million years they would have any proficiency at, they are weirdly capable at doing.
I need some examples.
Well, for example, not too long ago, my parents were having significant wireless channel conflict issues with one of the houses nearby, and I think my dad's solution was to sort of shout at it, which
did that
obviously
work?
did, as you might expect, wasn't terribly successful. So Mum just sort of sat down, potted through the administration pages of the router and selected a different channel, and that was all well and good. If I send her a picture message, no, that's not going to happen. That's for whatever reason she's decided that her phone doesn't want picture messages, so it's like, just send it to me by an email. It's like, okay, whatever. But so yeah, I just find that there's weird, if you like, there's a weird sort of inconsistency, certainly with my parents, about things that they can do and things that they can't. So yes.
How did they discover the Wi-Fi channel clash?
I suggested that might be the case.
Right.
But I didn't. I said, look, just wait, and because I was coming down the next couple of days, it's like I'll have a look at it then. But no, I'm cracked on, got it squared away. Top bollock.
The problem is a lot of them, their first kind of image of technology in kind of an AV terms was like really heavy duty VCRs and CRT TVs that you could still hit. You could take out your frustration on them, and so things have become a little bit more delicate now. I do kind of miss the days when you could just kind of hit the side of a CRT TV and you'd know that it'd be fine.
As a 6-7-year-old, you held great power in your hands if you'd figured out how to set the VCR to record at certain times.
Exactly that.
You had the keys to the biscuit box if you could do that.
That's basically when I took over the technology side of our house, age 8, when we got our VCR. And I was the only one that could work out the timer programming. That's where it all started.
Oh, you see, my dad went all in on Video Plus.
Oh, yeah, was that the one with the pen that read the barcode? Because we got one that had the pen and it read the barcode. So if you wanted to set it for 8 o'clock, you just set the pen and you scanned the barcode for 8 o'clock and it just set it up. That ruined my life, that did.
We didn't have anything that sophisticated. You just thumped in the 38-digit number and away it went.
That was a relatively recent sort of invention, though, wasn't it? That wasn't in the early days of VCRs. You didn't have that kind of luxury.
Well, no, our first VCR didn't even have a remote control. It was wired. The remote.
Ours was wired, yeah, Mitsubishi.
Are you sure it wasn't?
Back a few years.
Ours was a JVC, and then funnily enough, we went from VHS to Betamax because we went from JVC to Sony, and then obviously had to go back to VHS again.
But did you start with the top loading machine?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it had the flashing light as well.
Yeah,
so if the power tripped, whatever, then unless you were like me and could set the time, it just flashed all the time.
Yeah.
I think everyone has some kind of a device. I mean, the clocks have recently changed, and I'm sure everyone's got one device they just figure, sod it, I'll just wait until they turn back again.
Yeah, our microwave is ridiculously complicated to set.
That's the thermostat, the boiler controls for me. It's a simple 800 stage procedure, which you have to do sort of buried in the corner of the airing cupboard. So do you know what? The heating comes on an hour earlier and finishes an hour earlier, but it doesn't. In a terraced house, it really doesn't matter.
For me, it's the CMS and the forums. So publishing anything to the forums now the clocks have gone back, it's an hour out now when you publish anything.
Didn't that land us in a minor spot of bother?
It did a little last year. There was an NDA'd news story. We published it at the right time, but because of this bug that still exists on the forums now, it looked like we'd gone an hour early.
Right. Okay. Well, I look forward to that.
So honestly, we didn't break any NDAs.
But yes, that's all fun and games. I mean, it must be said, changing the time in one of our cars, changing the time is easy, but for whatever reason, it's like one of those whack-a-mole things. If you change the time, the date resets to the 1st of January 2000. You then set the date correctly, and the time then shifts by 5 minutes.
Which car is this?
This is the C-Max.
All right.
You change the time, and it's basically, you have to just press all the controls in just the right way for it to do it. I have now done it, and it's all good. In the same way that the Fabia we got rid of, only my wife was able to do that. You needed basically the skills of a safecracker, because it was done on the on the little push reset for the trip thing. You just had to sort of push it in a special way and then twist the end, and yeah, not a chance. So.
Yeah. Brilliant Ford build quality. I mean, the Mustang has got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and all the rest of it. Doesn't change the clock automatically.
No, the Fiesta doesn't either, but it's only 2 buttons to change it, so I wasn't too fussed about that.
Yeah, no, it took 2 seconds to do it, but it's just annoying that it can't talk to the phone and the phone say, oh, by the way, it's now no longer British summertime.
It's not even that. We've had cars 20 years ago that used to take it off the RDS radio feed, and they can't do that either.
Yeah.
So
technology's going backwards now. That's the problem. We're regressing. I mean, what happened to Concorde? You know what I mean?
I thought you were going to say Conkers.
I thought you were about to bring out the latest episode of Crash Investigations.
It's probably the only thing that we'd still excel at after Brexit is playing Conkers.
I don't know. We'll have health and safety it into oblivion. We need to wear goggles these days anyway. So
forgot about that. And that wasn't Europe, people. That was actually us.
And the quality of our conkers has been critically affected by the burrowing minor moth. Yeah.
Oh, blame Arthur Scargill.
Still loads around here.
Well, no, it's moving northwards. So our conkers have already been crippled, and you can look forward to yours being ruined in the next 3 to 4 years.
Where did it come from, this burrowing conker?
Foreigns. It came from the
Come over here, take in our conkers.
Right, Ed, let's talk about something called Poly.
Yes. This is possibly the... in so much as this product has no exact comparisons to anything else on the market. So to the extent where we've had to keep sort of digital categories for end-of-year roundups deliberately vague to include this thing. When they launched the Poly, Chord launched the Poly in 2015, right at the very start of the process, they show John Franks, who runs Chord Electronics, showed a mock-up of a thing that bolted onto the end of the Mojo, and and they were a bit vague about what it was. So, because most of us fundamentally lack imagination, I'll be for Bluetooth because Hugo's got Bluetooth and Mojo doesn't. Fast forward to CES this year, and the bolt-on was back, but this time it actually worked, and it was called Poly, and it wasn't just Bluetooth. It's got Bluetooth on it, but it did loads of things. It's a network-capable server and renderer that can use its own content. It can access other people's content, and then there's AirPlay thrown in as well. And it's one of the peculiar ones where the Mojo is £400 and the bolt-on is £500. And I've now spent I've spent quite a bit of time with it for reasons that are long and involved. I've had one for quite a while, and it's one of those things. Chord is absolutely adamant that this is a competitive product to a portable audio player, like the Pioneer that we've looked at, like the Sonys we've looked at. My considered response to that is that it simply isn't as it stands. It's too complicated to operate in a truly portable, in a truly mobile environment. But if you have a Mojo and you think, I'd like to start, assembling a proper system, Poly will turn it into a truly outstanding media server and streamer. And alternatively, if you are in a position where you move from place to place, but you can join a wireless network when you get there, then it starts to make extremely good sense, and it works extremely well. It's not a no-brainer purchase. I mean, this is sort of covered in the review as well, but it is extremely clever. And for a number of people, it's one of those things where you probably didn't know you needed it until you read about it, but it might just be exactly the thing that you should be after. So have a look at it and see what you think. And if you already own a Mojo, so you've already got sort of half the sunk cost there, it might be exactly the thing that you need and the product you need this year, even though we can't adequately define exactly what it is.
So are they kind of selling it as on the basis of more as a kind of portable media player? Because can't you play it off SD cards, that kind of thing?
Yes, you can, but if you look at it, you'll notice that it has no display, and the only controls on it are the 3 buttons on the Mojo, so volume up, volume down, and power off.
That was what I was going to ask, because I know that it'll cut down. You can do without the wires between the phone and the Mojo then. Say.
This is true, but you need to join the Mojo's hotspot and essentially tap it over UPnP to start playing it. Now, the Mojo's hotspot is pretty stable, and that's not the problem, such as any of this can be described as a problem. What my issue stems from is if you are connected to the hotspot, you can't if you then want to have a look at the AVForums or Twitter or whatever, for the most part, you need to disengage from the hotspot, reattach to 3G or 4G, and then surf the web as normal. If you then suddenly need to change tracks or change album, you then need to rejoin the hotspot, re-establish communication, and then run the necessary selections before disengaging again. And
so is that through an app you control? You'll be controlling the Mojo.
Yes, at the moment it's third-party app control only. Chord says that there is a dedicated app on the way, but I don't know if that switches over to Bluetooth as a control point, then that would be absolutely fantastic and would nullify this problem, and I would be happy to reconsider my opinion about its suitability as a portable audio product. But for the moment, whilst you're having to connect to its UPnP, connect over UPnP via its hotspot, it's just there is a good reason why most portable audio players have a display and controls of their own, put it like that. So but if you conversely, if you are the sort of person that turns up to work and you listen to music there and your own computer has been like heavily locked down, then it's ideal because it can sit on, any wireless networks that's there without the same issues at all. It's not doing anything, it's not actually drawing a huge amount of data or needing a particularly fast connection. It just simply needs to be present on a network, and then controlling it is comparatively simple. So that's where I think it comes into its own. But I think it's a very cool product. There is an element that it's not going to be a must-have purchase for every existing Mojo owner, but I think Chord accept that anyway.
And of course, they can read the review on the forums, Ed, because the review's now up, and it should still be there on the homepage when you listen to this podcast. So to wrap up on hardware, because we're way over time, is Steve is going to do a really quick hands-on with the X4400H from Denon, which is their AVR.
Yeah, I've got the new mid-range AVR from Denon, the 4400H. The H at the end means it supports the HEOS multi-room system. I've got to be honest, though, it's a great receiver, but if I compare it to the previous X4300, it's difficult to work out how different it actually is. There's obviously been a few minor tweaks here and there, but basically if you look at it, it looks exactly the same. The front panel is exactly the same. The remote control is exactly the same. The menu system is exactly the same. The connections at the rear are exactly the same. In terms of the power output, it's exactly the same. Supports all the same sound formats.
And the price?
Well, you can get the 4300 currently for about 900 quid, depending on where you get it and shop around. And the 4400 is being launched at, actually it was launched at £1,499, but I notice all the retailers have dropped it straight away to 1299, which was its original announced price. Pricing clearly has been affected somewhat by Brexit, and they have moved some of their pricing up. So even the X4300 actually is more expensive now than it was when I reviewed it back in April. So there's a clear price differential there of at least 300 quid between the two. And in actual fact, it will be hard to justify that 300 quid. What you do get on the 4400 that you don't get on the 4300 is you get it with Dolby Vision and HLG support out of the box, although they will be adding that via a firmware update quite soon to the 4300. You also get Auro 3D support out of the box now on the 4400, whereas with the 4300 you have to pay for that as an extra. And it will, via a firmware update at some point, the 4400 will support enhanced EARC, which is one of the new features that's coming along, technically under HDMI 2.1, but it's one of those things that could be done via 2.0 depending on the chipset you use. So they will be adding that, and what that means is you can actually send lossless audio back via ARC, which currently you can't do. But like I say, not a massive difference, and a lot of things, you might not necessarily want anyway. So it's a strange one because it's a great receiver, and when I reviewed the 4300, that got a Best Buy award at the time back in April because it was a cracking price and a great performer. This is equally as a good performer, but obviously it's a bit more expensive, so it's competing against not only itself in a way with the 4300, but also the competition. But it remains a really good receiver. I mean, I think Denon make bloody good AVRs. And this is another example of a solid 9-channel. We'll do 11.2 if you add additional amplification to it. Supports Dolby Atmos, supports DTSX, supports Auro 3D. It's a cracking receiver. It does everything you could want it to do. And if you're looking for a new one, and I guess you'll find that the 4300 is going to become less and less easy to get hold of anyway because it's going to gradually be phased out as they bring in the newer model. If you've got a 4300, stick with it. If you don't have one and you're looking for a new AVR, it's certainly worth considering. As I say, it's a good performer and it has all the features you could possibly want, really.
What's the upgrade cost for adding Auro 3D to the 4300?
It was a couple of £100. So you start to see the price differential becomes a lot less at that point. I mean, I don't know how much uptake there was in terms of people buying Auro 3D. I'm going to guess not much. It's a nice thing to have, but I don't think you're going to use it a lot. I mean, there's very few films, almost none, that have it. There's a lot of audio CDs, audio Blu-rays rather, that do have Auro 3D. But in terms of movies, it's still, hardly any titles have used it so far. But if it's something that you think you might be of interest to you, then yeah, that does one reason for going for the 4400, because you get it straight out of the box. But otherwise, the two receivers are extremely similar. They use the same DACs, for example. There have been minor tweaks here and there, mostly software stuff relating to HEOS. But actually, in terms of performance, they are pretty similar.
Okay, so that's the Denon X4400, and like we say, we've got the Yamahas coming up. Probably they're not getting delivered just yet. They're getting delivered middle of the month, so we know by the end of the month how they square up to Denon's offerings. And I guess, looking at the market these days, Steve, like you say, there's not a lot of differences between the two models. There's actually not a lot of difference between manufacturers these days, because they're all more or less hitting it out the ballpark. I don't think there's any bad AVRs out there at the minute. No,
I mean, if you're looking to buy an AVR right now, it's a cracking time to be getting one, because there's a good choice of really high quality AVRs at a range of price points that should cater for just about every possible need you could imagine. And the performance is uniformly good. I mean, even the budget stuff delivers a really solid performance. And I think, if you're still into your multi-channel audio and you want to get an AVR, now's the time to buy one.
Okay, so that's AVRs. Let's move on. It's movie news next. Okay, so movie news. Ed, you been at the cinema?
Of course I haven't been to the cinema. What on earth would I be doing that for?
No idea. I haven't been either. Steve, you been?
No, I haven't been.
I think that's just because we've seen everything there is to see that's worth seeing.
Yeah, there's nothing that was good coming out this week.
Yeah. So is there anything good coming out this week?
Well, we've got Only the Brave, which is a true story of firefighters battling a forest fire. It's directed by the guy that directed Oblivion and Tron, so he's doing something a bit more real world for a change. It's got a strong cast with Josh Brolin heading up the cast. I'm sure it'll be very patriotic and flag-waving American piece about brave firefighters. I guess Kaz described it as a cross between Everest and Backdraft. And Everest was a bit grim.
A heady
so that's not selling it, really, is it? It could be a bit grim, but yeah, it should be quite exciting if nothing else. And it's a big IMAX experience movie apparently, so worth checking out.
Maybe this is one that we need to send Ed's wife to. I think
actually she's quite up for this because it looks bleak as proverbial. So yeah, I will report back if she comes back with a one sentence enthusiastic review. So we'll see what comes of it. Can't say fairer than that, can I?
No, that's good. And the other one coming out this week, Steve,
is Paddington 2. I can't believe it's been 3 years since Paddington, which I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed. It's one of those films that I didn't like the look of in the trailers, but actually really liked when I saw it. And I actually probably am going to go and see this at the cinema next week. No, Laura wants to go and see it. But yes, looks quite funny in the trailers. I did think the first film was very good. Very, very clever and entertaining and quite witty. So I'm quite looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to it, but my kids don't want to go and see it, even though they enjoyed the first one. I'm really annoyed. I have to go on my own as well. But yeah, I like the look of it. I thought the first one was really funny.
Will you wear a big long Mac?
Yeah, why not? Some wellies.
Oh no, duffel coat, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a duffel coat, a hat, and wellies. Yeah. You'd be arrested on sight.
I don't know. That seems to be high fashion up north.
We all dress like that.
I thought people didn't wear coats up north.
Well, no, that's peculiar around Phil's area.
No,
other northerners wear coats.
There's two norths. There's like the north where Mark is, which is where most people in England think north is.
The civilised north.
And then you
north
get
of Watford Gap.
Yeah. Well, and then you get the north of Leeds, which is where nobody wears coats.
Behind the wall.
In the wall, yeah.
Essentially short of the day after tomorrow happening, and even then, in Sunderland, that would mean recourse to wearing a jumper.
I mean, genuinely, it happens every year that there is a news headline on a newspaper which says, "For God's sake, buy a coat." It has happened. Steve, I think I'm going to pass on this one. I found the first one was it was enjoyable, but I can't see what they're going to do with the second one. It's one of these cases of it did surprisingly well. It made good box office, so hell, let's make another one. And because of that, I don't think it'll be very good.
So yes, I mean it's got potential. It could either be the Godfather Part 2 of Paddington movies, or it could be the Weekend at Bernie's 2 of Paddington movies.
This time he's back to settle old scores.
Just when I think I'm out, they give me more marmalade.
They got 4 seasons left for a TV show, so surely they can make 2 films.
Yeah, been a whole load of books, isn't there? Stuff.
Oscar material, right? Blu-ray releases this week for people still buying Blu-rays.
Quite a lot actually this week, if you do still buy Blu-rays. So we've got Despicable Me 3, which is available on Blu-ray, 3D Blu-ray, and Ultra HD 4K Blu-ray. I have not seen it yet, but I did quite enjoy the previous 2, so I think I'll probably pick that up. We got Westworld Season 1. Now that's available also on Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray. Now I know Ed was a fan, and I thought the series was superb too. And I've got to say, I'm
thoroughly enjoyed it.
Tempted to get this because it would bear repeat viewing, particularly in light of some of the plot twists in the series. And also, I should imagine it would look spectacular on 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray with HDR and Dolby Atmos soundtrack as well. So that's something I'm tempted by. Got Bad Santa 2. So Bad Santa 2 actually came out of the cinema this time last year. Obviously, they bring it out on Blu-ray to tie in with Christmas season coming around again.
Is Christmas coming again?
Yeah. Oh. To my eternal shame, I bought this on Ultra HD Blu-ray a few months ago, and it's not a great film, I have to say.
Has it still got? Is it Billy Bob Thornton in it?
Yes, it has. And
how
Kathy
weird
Burke,
is he looking these days?
Why would he be looking weird?
I don't know. He's just got a strange face these days. There's something about him.
Yeah, he looks like Billy Bob Thornton, but yeah, it's just whilst Bad Santa was quite a good movie, I quite enjoyed it. This one feels like first of all, it's 14 years since Bad Santa, so unlike talk about taking their time. 14 years later, I don't think anyone's crying out.
But Blade Runner was 30 years later.
Yeah. Anyway, it's sort of just more crude humour, but it lacks the heart of the original film, so it becomes slightly unpleasant, really. We've also got Sorcerer, which is William Friedkin's film from 1977 that, unfortunately for it, opened up just a week before Star Wars did and got absolutely murdered and basically disappeared, and it became his lost masterpiece, and it's had a restoration, and it's now been released. And apparently it's very good. It's a remake of Wages of Fear, and I've actually got that on order because I've always been curious about Sorcerer, and I quite fancy seeing it. So that's coming out on Blu-ray on Monday. You've also got Your Name, which is a Japanese body swap anime that has had really, really good reviews. And again, I've got that on order because I quite fancy that. Apparently it's very good.
Japanese body swap anime. I think I went to see them support the Foo Fighters a couple of years ago.
Also getting a first-time UK release on Blu-ray, a couple of classics, Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep, both of which are absolutely superb. Definitely worth getting it if you don't already own. They're coming out with Warner's. They're Warner's premiere, so it's basically sold exclusively through HMV.
Is that just the exactly the same as the US release?
Yes, it is. Yeah, should be. But I think 2 absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it is. Should be.
Very political answer.
Yeah, covering all angles there, Steve. You should have just said, yeah, it should be, no.
Yeah, but no.
Yeah. Right, UHD Blu-rays. What can we waste our money on?
Well, as I mentioned already, Despicable Me 3 and Westworld Season 1 are getting 4K releases this week. Plus, also, this week, A Few Good Men, which I've got to say I quite fancy because I love the film. I think it's a great movie. And Sony have obviously done a 4K restoration of the original camera negative, so it should look really good as well. Announced coming out soon in December, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. That's arriving, I think it's the 12th of December, so it would have been probably 11th of December in this country. And also coming out on the 26th of December is American Made. That's coming out just after Christmas. So those are the announcements so far. Otherwise, not much else of newsworthy announcements in terms of Ultra HD Blu-ray at the moment.
American made, is it something to do with Christmas? Like, is that why?
I don't know why they picked Boxing Day as a release date for American made, but it's the one about Tom Cruise film where he's smuggling drugs.
Yeah,
with the CIA.
That's what I mean. Loads of white powder. I was just thinking if that was the tie-in.
That would be a very tenuous tie-in.
Okay, so sorry, Ed, are we boring you?
Sorry, no, I'm just once again fighting off a cat, literally.
Quietly.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. I just, whilst Steve's been saying that, I'm muted, and I've just had bloody cat ring piece in my face like the Eye of Sauron. It's just been unpleasant.
Hope you don't let your cat walk through other people's cement.
No, mine don't do that. But Mark, I'm sorry. It is an unwritten rule that where cement is laid horizontally, footprints will be placed within it. And if there are no cats available, an errant child will draw a crudely drawn cock in it.
I was going to draw the cock in it, and the cat's ruined it.
Right. Okay. Fine. Oh well, I'm bitterly disappointed for you because there is nothing more satisfying than preserving a giant crudely drawn cock for immortality. You know, one for Time Team to ponder in the centuries to come. Did this have a religious meaning? Yes, definitely.
Does that mean the Rude Man of CERN is basically just a giant graffiti cock that someone just
drew?
It
is. Yeah,
there's no fertility aspect to it whatsoever. It was just some bored teenager going, let's put
to draw a gigantic cock on the side of a hill.
Okay, so to wrap up, Stranger Things 2, we've been hyping it all about it. What did we think of it? Well, I'm only 2 episodes in. We're not going to have any spoilers on this. And
I can't believe you, who've been banging on about Stranger Things 2 for the entire year, have only watched 2 episodes.
Because I'm taking it in, Steve. I'm letting it wash over. I'm saving it. It's like when you go for a good meal, you don't wolf it all down in one go.
I do, but that's because I've got a 4-year-old.
You got to savour a good meal. You eat the fries first, then the zinger burger.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're making me hungry. Shut up.
Anyway, I mean, I'm only 2 episodes in, but already I'm hooked. I'm enjoying it. It's just that I haven't had the time to sit down and get any further with it. Otherwise, I would have had it watched by now. It's just I've been really busy. And like you, Steve.
Well, no, I just made time. And also I was reviewing it, so I had to watch it, didn't I, really? Having watched it, actually, I do agree with you slightly, Phil, which is that I felt quite sad at the end for a number of reasons, but one of them was because it had finished, because I'd watched it all and there was going to be another year until the next season, which apparently there will be another season. They better be quick because those kids are growing fast. I'll tell you what, some of them grow up during this season and look very different by the end. But I was quite sad at the end because I've watched it now. That's it. Also, it is. I'm man enough to admit this. There was a few moments at the end there where I was in tears. I think it's very emotional. I think actually it's better than the first season. I think it's a bigger story. It's more emotional, and I think the kids are absolutely superb in it. There are a few not issues, but things that happened that you think, well, why is that character in it? Or one particular episode 7, where you think, okay, that really either it didn't need to be there or they're setting up season 3 with it. But overall, it was stock, loads of nostalgia again. They had a good plot, some quite good scares. The effects budget's clearly a lot bigger, and it sounded great. And
one thing that's really stood out for me, just 2 episodes in, is that the acting is so much better.
The acting's brilliant, I think.
Yeah,
really, really.
It's such an improvement in the acting, and they're all really good. But and again, without spoilers and all the rest of it, I think 1 or 2 of them are really going to turn into real stars further down the line. I think they've got that charisma, they've got that sparkle, that humour. So yeah, there's a few of them that I think they're going to steal every scene that they're in. Basically, I think the acting's superb.
I think the quality of the writing is also really good. And I like the way that they've, in setting up season 2, they've addressed certain aspects of season 1 and carried them forward, and I'm talking about things like just dealing with the consequences of what happened in season 1, because obviously it was quite traumatic, and also obviously death of certain characters that were perhaps not that well addressed in season 1 have been addressed more in season 2. I think partly in response to fans saying, "Oh, what about Barb?" Basically, well, she just disappears and no one gives the monkeys. So that's quite good. But I think it was superb, absolutely superb. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I also discovered, if you really, at the end of it, you want more, then there's also Beyond Stranger Things, which is basically a series of half-hour roundtable discussions with the cast and crew about the series, which is really good too.
Yeah, they do that with Discovery as well at the minute.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I can't stand the guy that hosts it, so I switch it off. But it seems to be a popular thing that they do now. And talking about Star Trek Discovery, I'm really getting into that, but I haven't watched it again I just haven't had time. So I've actually got 2 episodes sitting waiting to watch on that as well. So I'm looking forward to finding some time to actually watch these things. I'll have to do it anyway this week because I've got the JVC and I need to start testing that. So there's my excuse. That is my testing time is going to be Stranger Things and catching up with Star Trek, as well as the usual test footage.
Are we seeing the end of binge watching now amongst some people then? Are people starting to actually finally just ration themselves a little bit?
I like the option of having a couple to watch, but rarely do I now.
I tend to 2 at a time, three maximum. Because I think any more than that, I start to drift off and lose interest. I find that's probably the right length of time for me. I was never one for sitting and actually binging anyway. So I can't say I've really done that in the past.
So certain things lend themselves more to binging than others. I mean, Stranger Things is effectively just one big long movie, so you can watch it in a prolonged sitting and not feel as if you're just watching episode after episode, but it's a continuing story. It's interesting that normally Netflix themselves don't release any numbers regarding viewing figures, but Nielsen in the States have started doing surveys, viewing figure surveys for streaming content and for Stranger Things too. In the US, at least, over the opening weekend, so over that weekend that it became available to stream, just under 16 million people watched the first episode at least, and nearly 400,000 people actually watched the whole thing in the first day. So yeah, binging probably isn't as popular as
you're
maybe
one of the 400,000, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be including that. I think it might just be US statistics, but yeah.
Right.
But yeah, 16 million then, that's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, that's big numbers for a TV series.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with House of Cards being cancelled, is that because of the current incumbent president that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I've stopped watching it.
Yeah. I stopped
real life's weirder.
Yeah, I stopped at season 2.
I've got to season 4, I think.
Which one is it on? Yeah, I watched up to season 4. I haven't seen season 5.
I haven't seen season 5. I've not got any urge to either.
No, because it just seems like real life is weirder now, and it's had its time, and now we've got a lunatic in the White House. We don't need to watch one on TV. I think they should do what they did at in the post Clinton Bush era. You had the West Wing, which was kind of like a Democrat's kind of wet dream of what things would have been like if Kennedy hadn't been killed, and maybe they need to do a reactionary series now where we have a classier, nicer president in fictional terms.
If it's Aaron Sorkin, it can just sod off, right? Because so worthy.
What I think we need, Steve, is Jonathan Pye on the TV.
Yeah, that would be good. Although the thing about Jonathan Pye is that I think, although I have seen him live, and he did do a great live show, and it was very well conceived. But generally, 3-4 minutes of ranting's enough, isn't it? You couldn't do half an hour ranting.
Yeah, but what they should do is you should give him a slot straight after the 6 o'clock news.
Instead of the weather.
Yeah, instead of the weather, you get Jonathan Pye for 4 minutes.
That would be good value.
Okay, so Steve enjoys Stranger Things. The rest of us are taking our time and enjoying it as we go along, but it looks like it's going to be great. Steve also saw an HBO documentary about Steven Spielberg. None of us, or the rest of us, have seen it, have we?
No.
So once again, Stephen creating a running order that suits him and gives him plenty to talk about.
And can I just also complain about the IMDb link that links to Steven Spielberg and then just brings up his work as producer?
Well, you could go further
Why
down.
did the thought as that? I'm scrolling through and thinking, Transformers? What's going on?
Yeah, Steve,
He's
get
getting
your act
defensive
together.
now. I don't
blame me, blame
know how
IMDb.
you're finding the time, to be honest. but no, I haven't watched it. I mean, as I say, I'm getting ready for MasterChef The Professionals. But otherwise, I mean, I was disgusted to learn the other day that there are episodes of, even though it feels like I've seen every episode several hundred times, I was astonished to learn that there are episodes of Peppa Pig I haven't seen.
No.
Okay.
No, apparently, and I was like,
The Lost Files.
yeah, I mean, the completionist in me is irrationally angry at this and is sort of determined to hunt them out. You know, just because I feel that I can't claim I've suffered enough unless I've seen every single episode of Peppa Pig ever made. So,
how many seasons are there?
oh
4?
God, no.
6?
Hang on, lots. And then it also it's always then even when they're listed arbitrarily as seasons, because they come out in quite sort of irregular lumps. They there's more than that. So let me just bring that up. And I say there's some Ben and Hollies I haven't seen as well, but that's actually a bit of a treat. I thoroughly enjoy Ben and Holly. It's pretty good.
I don't know what you two are talking about.
Well,
It's really good.
No. Well, at the moment, I've got to say I'm really enjoying still Adventure Time and Wish Fart as well.
235 episodes over.
Oh no, I've not seen all those.
Over 5 seasons.
5 seasons. Okay.
So yeah, living the dream.
We once made a mistake putting Peppa Pig on season record on the TiVo, and it was full within a week.
Yeah, because over half term, Nick Jr. 2 just changed to Nick Jr. Pepper. You could watch Peppa Pig 7 days a week for 21 hours a day. You know, they had a brief teleshopping interlude between 1 and 4 p.m., 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. just to remind you that your child should sleep every now and again.
It's like Vicodin for toddlers, isn't it? You could just stick them there and they go into a trance.
So, yeah.
So anyway, getting back to this Steven Spielberg documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Where is it available, Steve, and where can we all go and watch it so we can discuss this next week?
It was it's available on Now TV. It was an HBO documentary, so it was shown on Sky, presumably Sky Atlantic. But you can watch it on Now TV if you've got access to that. It's quite long. It's about 2 hours 20 minutes in total, but it covers almost his entire career, and it's full of interviews with him, plus interviews with his friends, so Lucas, Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, a lot of actors that were involved in his films over the years. There's some quite funny stuff with Liam Neeson talking about shooting Schindler's List. And I know you wouldn't think that would be a funny subject, but it's quite funny the way he's talking about the way that Spielberg directed him. Lots of clips, obviously, from his stuff. And it was fascinating because if you can think of another director with a wider body of work and a successful body of work as him, both critically and commercially, probably is the single greatest, most commercially successful director of all time.
It's only recently that things have started to wane a little in terms of popularity, but then a lot of that is some of the subject matter that he's choosing to cover, such as Lincoln. It didn't do particularly well. It was rather dry. It was rather righteous. Is that the right word?
Unfortunately, a couple of his most recent films, that and Bridge of Spies, have been a bit slow and righteous and worthy.
Yeah.
However, next year he's got Ready Player One coming out, which looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, it might be a classic Spielberg. But it's just amazing, the body of work, the breadth of work. I mean, watching it, I was thinking, like, bloody hell, that you forget some of the things he's made over the years. I'd forgotten one, but I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I remember thinking Munich was a really classy piece of work from him, on a difficult subject, and interestingly ambivalent from someone who is inherently Jewish. They also, in the documentary, do brush over a few of his titles, I have to say, that always doesn't get mentioned at all. Hook doesn't get mentioned at all. 1941 gets mentioned very briefly, basically because it was a bit of a disaster at the time. He's got a great line where he goes, because obviously he'd done Jaws and Close Encounters and was like the golden boy and been really successful. Everyone kind of wanted him to fail. When 1941 bombed, he said, "You thought I committed a war crime for giving some of those reviews." He did take a lot of stick for that one, but obviously came back with Raiders and then E.T. They do cover him doing Colour Purple, which was a very strange choice for a white male Jewish man to adapt to a film, given its subject matter. And they do some quite interesting stuff on Empire of the Sun as well.
Empire of the Sun, again, that's another stunning piece of work. That,
it's an amazing film, I think.
Again, gets overlooked, I think.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely that kind of late 80s period where I think some of his work, he did some good work, but it just doesn't get recognised as much. Because Empire of the Sun, I think, is a brilliant film with an amazing performance for Christian Bale in the lead role, and a really dark, enigmatic, downer ending.
Yeah,
because that shot of him, his eyes at the end, you can see that he's fundamentally changed by his experiences to the point where I don't think he can even show love to his parents anymore. It's an unusual film from Spielberg, actually, and obviously the beginning of him becoming a more adult filmmaker that led into Schindler's List and the work he's done since then. But he's a very interesting guy. There's some really interesting stuff about his personal life, which because obviously, if you watch his films, E.T. being a classic example, the absent father is a big thing in his movies. Divorced parents and absent fathers. And obviously his parents were divorced, and he blamed his father for leaving his mother. It turned out, and he didn't know this until he was in his 30s, that his father wasn't the one that left his mother. It was his mother who left his father for his father's best friend. And for a long time he wouldn't have anything to do with his father, and his father kind of took the blame because he didn't think the mother was capable of handling the hostility from the children. So his father, because he still loved his mother, took the blame for the divorce, even though it wasn't him that left. So quite sad in a way that it wasn't until his adulthood that he managed to reconcile with his father, and then he made Saving Private Ryan for his father in that sense. So it was really, really good. Recommend it highly.
Do you need some tissues, Steve? Are you all right? You blubbing away there?
Yeah, I'm gonna start crying.
I need a wee.
Are we nearly there yet?
Okay, so that's the HBO documentary that Steve watched about Steven Spielberg. None of us have got access to watch that on TV.
Mark's got Now TV.
I haven't. I've got the kids Now TV thing. I don't use Now TV.
Do you want to say something else that's quite random? I quite possibly later on today I might go out and purchase my first 4K screen, but it's going to fit in my pocket, so I'm still going to have a 1080 capable television, but a 4K telephone.
Okay, such is the world. You're not going to go and buy an iPhone X, are you?
Am I bollocks? No. There is, for whatever reason, well, as the ongoing saga of this mobile phone that I got for cheap as an emergency, because my last phone died just before Christmas. I thought I need something to go to CES, and the lesson I can draw from this is you can get an Android phone for bugger all, but for the love of all things holy, don't, because it's essentially, after a year, it is utterly worn out. It gets up to about 8 million degrees when you ask it to perform any complicated processes. It would appear that Tesco's has got the Sony XZ Premium for a reasonably sensible amount, so hopefully I can just tap my contract onto that. But yeah, I was amused to see that it's got 4K and HDR.
Yes, there's HDR, doesn't it? That one, yeah.
Which is something that my television is utterly incapable of doing.
Usually it says on your phone, "Do you want to cast this to your TV?" And you'll be wanting the opposite.
There you go.
To be honest, that's of little concern, but it also, crucially, it has the processing power and internal memory required, so that hopefully it won't be a bag of spanners to operate. So, that's hopefully the plan.
I've got an old flip Sony Ericsson in a drawer if you want it.
Excellent. Well, I will say this Sony has got it would appear its ability to shoot slow-mo is absolutely outstanding. It's like 960 frames for short periods of time to do ridiculous slow-mo. So that might turn out to be useful. Who knows?
Hodge, we need a really depressing quote to end on.
What's the worst that could happen?
Is that it?
That's the Paddington quote. It just seems miserable. Well, I don't know. Well, I can't think. I'm feeling quite jolly.
And on that bombshell.
That's it for the AVForums podcast this week. My thanks to Stephen Withers.
It's not even a code. It's more of a set of guidelines and a binding ethos.
Mark Hodgkinson.
What's the worst that could happen?
Ed Selley.
Arf.
And Mark Botwright.
Wind, hot wind.
That describes the podcast. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums for latest reviews, news and videos, and of course leave us those 5-star ratings on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. But please do leave them. It helps us climb up the charts. We are number 8 at the moment in best podcasts for gadgets. We'd like to try and climb a little bit higher, so please go and give us those 5-star ratings so that can happen. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.